So Transactions Made Easy, you started that company how many years ago now?
2008, so 9 years.
And what exactly are you focusing on right now?
Well, we were doing listing management when we first started, contract to close and listing management. And 3 years into it, my contract to close got so big, which was I didn't expect, that I just gave the listing management part of it away. So the lady who I'd hired, she still works for me, she does all the listing management, but my company now just focuses on contract to close, transaction management.
Yeah, I saw you put a post online the other day that said you're now Texas' largest real estate transaction company.
Yep.
What brought you to that level, and what do you think set you apart to make you the largest in Texas?
What brought me to that level were the realtors I work with, just word of mouth. I don't advertise other than just posting stuff on Facebook. I actually just started a website, and it's really ghetto, so don't go look at it. It's really bad. But I mean, I just started a website 5 months ago. So I mean, everything I've done is just word of mouth. And I think what really sets my company apart from everybody else is, we're personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's really personal contract to close, versus most of the other contract to close companies they basically push paper and do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. We're extremely involved in the entire process. And then the third thing that sets us apart is we place a heavy emphasis on the client, hoping to help the agent get long-term referral business.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal is to help the agent get referral business, because the more contracts they get, the more contracts I get.
Right, which is how much percent of your business is a referral? Most of it, right?
It's all referral.
Yeah, 100% of your business,
Yeah,
which is an amazing thing. And you've been in business for a long time now.
Yeah.
Long enough that I started working for you when you first started. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I remember you doing listing management and you were doing photography at the same time. And I knew, man, I remember watching you and I was like, that guy's really good at that. You weren't meant for listing management.
Wow.
And, dude,
I don't like people enough, maybe?
Yeah,
I don't know.
No. I mean,
Details?
it's not, I mean, you have to do what you're passionate about, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're not passionate about something, it's just a job.
Yeah, sure.
And, man, you were so good at that. Look where you are now.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought we would ever be where we are now?
Yeah, never, man. Yeah, I mean, dude, high school dropout, no college education, you know,
Yep.
it's a blessing, man. It's hard work and trust in the Lord, man, it goes a long way.
Yep.
Speaking of that, I remember when you first started out, you were working with, or when I remember, you were working with Owen Group Homes at the time. But prior to that, there was one person that really influenced you a lot to get into the business, and that was your grandmother.
Yeah.
And talk about her and your relationship with her, and
Yeah,
some
I
funny
had
stories there.
Yeah, I was a bad person. I had a very rough past. I was homeless for a long time and grew up on the streets and involved in gangs and drugs, and spent some time in the state penitentiary. And a lot of my agents probably don't know that, but I mean, it's a part of my past and who I am. And my grandmother, I had just gotten custody of my 5-year-old daughter, and I'd just begun a relationship with the Lord at that time. And my grandmother, who was the biggest influence in my life, just the sweetest woman ever. She was in the real estate industry for 36 years as a top producer. I grew up going to open houses and listing appointments and, you know, writing contracts, and swore I would never get into real estate. And she actually hired me to be her listing manager. She was at Keller Williams when it was off Blanco Road. Craig Owen had just sold the Owen Group to Pat and Kathy King and become the team leader of the Keller Williams there.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was a very, very intense woman. She she was a very high D personality and no nonsense, very old school, grew up on a dairy farm, tough woman. And I saw that the trend in real estate was going paperless and cloud, even though we didn't know what it was at that. We didn't know the World Wide Web was going to be called the cloud at that time. And I saw that it was going that direction, and so I was looking at some stuff, and I kept telling her, man, you should really let me help kind of change the systems that you have and automate you. And She did not want to do it. She had huge paper files with yellow sticky notes and pin marks everywhere, and oh man, it drove me nuts. And so one day I came in and I called her Meemaw. I said, Meemaw, look, you should really just let me automate you. I've seen this system. And she goes, well, if you don't like the way I do things, you can consider this your 2 weeks notice. She fired me, dude. It was like my own grandmother fired me. But it was funny. And Craig had actually been watching me, and he saw that I was picking things up quickly and really working hard and trying to change my life. I still looked like a thug. I wore a beanie down to here and sleeves over my hands and big baggy jeans with a big chain. I was just a thug. And Craig was trying to change the culture of that office at the time. And he came up to me one day and he said, hey man, you can't dress like that. And I looked at him and said, you can't tell me how I can dress, and walked off. And so Craig and I didn't have the greatest relationship, but I will tell you, it was really interesting. That guy saw something in me that I never would have seen in myself. And he came up to me one day, I'll try not to cry. Man.
That's all right, man. He's a great guy, I know.
Yeah, he came up to me one day and he said, if you'll invest in you, I'll invest in you. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, if you'll listen to some things that I have to say, I'll take you and buy you some clothes, and I'll get you a job at the Owen Group. And I actually didn't believe him, and I said, okay. And so he called his assistant and he canceled all of his appointments that day.
Wow.
Took me to Too Good to Be Through and bought me $600 worth of clothes.
Wow. And
got me a job at the Owen Group, and that literally changed my life. Literally, I mean, I would not be in the position that I'm in right now, nor would I have realized the capabilities and talents that I had that guy not invested in me. I love that guy like a brother, and that gave me my start. I mean, I worked at the Owen Group for 4.5 years with Pat and Kathy, and they're literally like family to me. I love Pat and Kathy. I love their whole family, and then Pat did me the second greatest favor that anyone could have done for me, and he fired me because I got to the point where I outgrew the position.
Yeah, I remember.
And so I went to him one day and I asked for a raise because I was married and I had a daughter, and my wife was staying home with our daughter to homeschool her, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and I needed more money. And Pat was like, you know how Pat is, he was like, bud, and he said, the position that you're in just doesn't call for that salary. He said, you're way too talented. He said, you need to find something that best suits your abilities. And I was like, no. I'll stay in this position I would have stayed at the Owen Group forever. I really would have, man. But he told me, he said, you need to find something else. He said, I'll give you as long as you need, but you need to find something else. And so I ended up being the office manager of the second biggest group at that market center. And I completely revamped their systems and fired some of their agents and hired some of their agents and trained them and went through scripts, and we ended up passing the Owen Group in production. And then I helped Craig open up a market center and
New Braunfels, right?
Yeah, New Braunfels. And then in 2008 is when I came up with this idea. I kept thinking, man, the contract to close stuff I'm really good at, and the systems I know. I mean, the systems that we had already built for the Owen Group were unlike any that anyone was using. And plus, I had some ideas just from the way that real estate was going, videos and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I thought I could do this for agents on a contract by contract basis. And so I took out a $3,000 loan, which was like, it may have been $1 million at that time. I was so petrified. And I bought a fax machine, remember those? And a scanner and a computer. And Craig gave me office space that he made me pay for. And I started at the Keller Williams over there when they had moved to Huebner. Mm-hmm. And literally within 6 months, I was like, okay, this is going to be way bigger than anything I had anticipated. I really had such small expectations, which is weird, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it would do.
But it worked for you because you're a detailed person.
Yeah, and I'm super driven.
Yeah.
I'm never satisfied. I want my agents to be happy. I want their clients to be happy. I want to be the best. And so I remember the first couple years I would see other. I really think that I was one of the first people doing this in all of tech. Nobody else was doing it. And word started getting around, so I started getting calls from team leaders in Austin, New Braunfels, and Houston, and Dallas. And next thing I know, I was all over Texas doing contract to close, and I was like, "Good God, this is really going to get big." So I had to literally restructure my entire business model and come up with a completely new business model because there was no way I could do it by myself. And in those first couple of years, I remember some companies popping up. And I would sit up at night on Google, petrified in front of my computer. I was like, I'm going to go bankrupt. Oh my God, I'm going to, and just, I would really think, and Craig calls that operating out of fear. And I was operating out of fear. And it's so funny. I see those companies come and I see them go.
Yeah.
It's like a revolving door. And I'm sure you've seen it in the.
It takes a lot, man.
It does.
It takes a lot of your money. It takes a lot of resources, your time, effort.
Well, and relationships.
Yeah, you have to put that time, effort.
It takes a lot of relationship building and cultivating and sustaining. And my agents have to put up with me and how I am, and I have to put up with them sometimes and how they are. And I mean, it's like a marriage of sorts. And if you're not committed to that, if you think you're just going to do steps in a transaction and get money at the end of it, that is not how it works.
Yeah, a lot of what your system is based on is the 80-20 rule, right? And
it's built off of the 80-20. That's the Ferretti principle is what I really latched onto because I realized, and the first time I heard it was in church. This guy said that 80% of the people gave 20% of the giving, and the 20% are the ones that made up the 80% they needed. And I was like, what? And I mulled over that for a couple days, and I was like, what does that mean? And then Craig talked about it in a team meeting one day. It was really, I had heard it in church, and then Craig talked about it in a team meeting. He brought it up, the 80-20 law, and he said that the 20% of the agents made up the 80% that the market center needed. The other 80% kind of didn't really do a lot.
Right.
And I was like, wow. And so that's when I started thinking, well, agents, they spend 80% of their time doing the 80% that doesn't make them the most money.
Right. That they don't want to do.
Yeah, they don't even want to do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's not what they got in real estate. And the crazy thing is, real estate just gets worse every year. I mean, it's more paperwork, it's more legality, it's more phone calls, it's more emails. It's just constantly getting worse. And I kept thinking, they got into real estate to work with buyers and sellers. That's what they want to do. That's their 20%. That's what makes them the most money. So if we could take that 80% off of their plate and go above and beyond with things they never thought a contract to close company would do, then, I mean, man, that's a recipe for success. And it worked.
Yeah, it worked really well.
It did work really well.
How many employees do you have now?
I've got 4 on-staff employees, and I've got 7 contract to close transaction managers.
In how many
Texas. 5 cities.
In 5 cities right now. And you're based out of, for a while you lived over by Austin.
Yeah, for 4 years I was in Georgetown, but San Antonio is my home. That's where I was born and raised, yeah.
Yeah, you grew up here. Yeah. What side of
town? Northeast.
Northeast side of town.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember some stories about those ones. We'll save for another time.
I've got lots of stories.
Waking up in hallways of apartments and